the best days of my life were ones when I had nothing left in the tank. And so then the goal becomes to empty the tank, not where I drive, but just to drive the car as hard as I possibly can. And that means that in the beginning, it's just straightaways and just seeing how high I can rev the engine.
A hard problem doesn't necessarily guarantee that it is a valuable problem. Like if you run a marathon very hard, doesn't necessarily make you more money. So like there's lots of hard things that are out there that will not turn into monetization.
So during my year off that I took during the year of the sale, when I couldn't really work on the business because you don't want to change anything major when you're going through a sale. But I didn't know if I was going to be owning this business soon. So I basically just had to do nothing because I also had to demonstrate that the team could do it without me. So that's still a sellable asset. So I basically just sat there for a year. And that's when a lot of my thoughts kind of caught up from, when I had started years earlier. And that was when I kind of refined my kind of theory of living for me, which is that hard work is the goal. And so it's not like work hard so that X, because as soon as you have a so that, then the X is the thing. But if the goal is to work as hard as you possibly can, then the only real output we have is who we become along the way. And so in reframing that, then it's something that I can win or measure myself against every day in real time throughout the day, which is how hard am I working? Because that is the goal. And then even I say this just for audio, but everything else takes care of itself, still puts the everything else as the goal still. It's just being vaguer. But if you just say the only point is working hard because I know that whatever I'm going to get is stuff that I will become accustomed to. And the, I guess, opposite of the hedonic treadmill is the resilience piece is that my ability to work hard itself is growable. And so I just need to keep my RP, my rate of perceived exertion, at 8 or 9 or 10, because I know that when I look back on my life, the days that I loved the most were days when I had nothing left in the tank. And there's this thing that Jesse Itzler has this, and I love it. I hate him for having it because it's so fucking good. But he taught it to his kids, which is they have a little zero, means that there's nothing left in the tank. And when they finish a race or they do whatever, it's did you leave anything in the tank? And I thought about that, and the best days of my life were ones when I had nothing left in the tank. And so then the goal becomes to empty the tank, not where I drive, but just to drive the car as hard as I possibly can. And that means that in the beginning, it's just straightaways and just seeing how high I can rev the engine. But as I become more advanced, it's all right, well, now we've got turns, and then it's turns in elevation, and then it's turns in elevation without guardrails because we have risk. And so when I think about how hard I want to work, the interesting thing about that is that the only person who can judge you on your success is you, because you're the only one who knows how much left in the tank you really had. And the better you get, and you can resonate with this, you start winning exteriorly. And that's when people are it felt so empty. It's because they didn't actually work as hard as they could have. They just worked hard enough to beat everyone else. But that discrepancy between how hard you could have worked to work your hardest versus what was required in order to win, to me, that's the opportunity that shifting towards the work being the goal unlocks for you. And I work harder now than I did when I was poor. And I think it's because I've learned to enjoy it. If the outcome that we're trying to have is being present, then the outcome actually is irrelevant because it's about how much you empty the tank. If we're talking about the science of achievement, then the outcome does matter, obviously. Mm-hmm. And so balancing both of those things, which is that if I want to accomplish all my goals, then I need to make sure that my inputs are tied as closely as humanly possible to the outcome. If I want to be satisfied, it doesn't matter at all. And so I think it's marrying those two ideas where the perfect world, in my opinion, would be you work as hard as you possibly can because you thought ahead of time, what is the input that has the closest correlation with the outcome that I want? And then you put your blinders on and you start digging. There's this line that I heard David Goggins say on Rogan, and I can't remember who he was saying it to or what he said in response to, but he just said, "I'm David Goggins." And I remember him saying it, and I thought to myself, you want to be able to say that in the mirror to yourself and not laugh at yourself. Mm-hmm. And the only way that I can do that is know that when no one's watching, I work harder than when they're watching. And thinking about it like that has given me this persistent and ever-present scorecard or third party that's no one's watching, which means now you have to work because otherwise you're full of shit. And so it's this continuous reinforcing cycle of the me and other me holding the whip behind me to see how much I can take. But with each lash of the whip that I take, learning that I can take it and continue to trudge on. And so as long as you keep going, you bear witness to yourself of what you are capable of. And I find that incredibly satisfying in the trenches of misery when you have to go through it. So I think what we're teasing at is authenticity. And so a lot of people feel like imposters because what they think, what they say, and what they do are completely different. But from an operational perspective, because that's how I like to define a lot of words, which is what do I have to do to be that, right? What do I have to do to be authentic? And you can describe someone as authentic by saying, how would you behave if there was no possibility of punishment? And so if you could not be punished at all, that behavior is who you are authentically. And so in my opinion, our degrees of freedom are predicated on how much, to what extent we act as though we could not be punished. And so if what we want to do and what we do have no possibility of punishment, that is what we are when we are our true selves. I actually think ground zero of that is living out your fucked thoughts and then slowly trying. Like, I think the hardest jump is actually doing and saying what you think. When someone's like, hey, what do you think about this? And you're like, I wasn't paying attention at all. It's like, oh, wow. Okay. And so then you basically become, because I think if personal truth of not lying to, if you start by not lying to yourself, and then you start saying those things, then you start not lying to other people. And I think if you can decrease the friction between what you really think and what you say, it starts to create some virtuous cycle outside of you that starts to orient your behavior so that you actually start doing what you really think. And I have integrity, but in the truest sense as one of my personal kind of goals. It's jarring to people when you're just honest, and like really honest. Like, hey, do you want to go to this, to Sarah's birthday party? No. And they're like, what do you mean? You busy? They're like, no, I'm not busy, but I don't want to go. People have a hard time just saying no to things. And I would encourage you, if you're listening to this, like, try saying no to, try actually telling the truth when you don't want to do something. Because we have so many social niceties that we say, oh, I'm really busy, or it's a really bad time right now, or whatever. It's, I had somebody the other day, I was with a friend and I didn't notice that I did this. So sometimes it's nice to have somebody from the outside. And so somebody came up to me, we were looking at a real estate property and someone knew I was going to be there. And so that guy showed up unannounced or whatever. And he was like, hey man, can we do a podcast? And I was like, I'm just in town, going to hang out with Layla for the next few days. Like, not really trying to do that. And he asked again, and he was like, hey, maybe like 20 minutes. Let's we can just rock one out. And I was like, well, let me show you my calendar. And I pulled up my calendar and it was all empty. And I said, see, there's nothing on there. And I was like, and I just want to keep it that way. And I didn't think anything of it, but apparently he left. And then my friend just starts crying, laughing, just thinking how hilarious. He's like, I can't believe you said that. That was so boss, blah, blah. And I was like, what is he talking about? He's like, you just showed him your calendar that you had nothing. And you were still like, you're still not going to get any of my time. And I didn't perceive any of this extra narrative that he added to it. But I think just being able to say no to stuff when people ask you for it, because people ask you for stuff all the time. It's these little nibs, these little tiny things. Hey, can you do this? Or, hey, can we show up to this thing? Or, hey, you're supposed to, or, hey, your aunt did that one thing for you, so therefore you owe her. And saying like, I don't subject myself to those rules. And I had a New Year's resolution, which I do believe in making resolutions. Like, why not? If you stick with them. And so one of my more recent ones was, there are no such thing as social obligations, only consequences. So you have no social obligations. You have social consequences. But you don't have social obligations.
It's the freedom to choose. But I think people stop at freedom. There's this almost fetishization of independence and keeping your options open and options maxing, right, for your life. But all of the best parts of life come on the other side of exercising an option and walking through a door. But in so doing, leaving the other doors that you could have walked through behind. And so the secret to getting a life you want is making a commitment, but you will not get all lives you want. And so at some point you have to sit at the precipice and you have to make a trade. And you have to say, I want this more than something else. It means I know I'm not going to get this. And I choose to say that I want this more. And I think this is where people just sit at the crossroads. And that is what takes the majority of time, not just getting into business, but also when you're in business, people will sit at the crossroads of like, what type of company do I want to build? What type of product? And what type of business do I want? And we sit there, and when I see people get stuck, it's almost always unmade decisions, because unmade decisions can last forever. Whereas if you're in a trial loop of feedback, like you'll figure it out, like you'll move. But if you're in an unmade decision, it could sit there forever. And that's like the freedom to choose. We have to choose. There are more people starting businesses than ever before. I know since COVID, there's at least in the US, the stats that I looked at recently, it's like there's been more new businesses per quarter. It's been growing really aggressively, at least in the US. And so more people are starting businesses. And so I think that lowering the cost of entry has gotten more people across the line. I think having more access to information has gotten more people across the line. But why isn't everyone going across the line? I think there's a couple of things. One is, to your point earlier, I don't think it is for everyone. And so I think the issue there is one of motivation. They have too many carrots, so good things, keeping them in their current position, and not enough sticks or bad things getting them out of their current position. And I think it's a Tony Robbins quote, which is the pain of staying the same has to be greater than the pain of change. And I think that when that happens, and it could be the pleasure of change has to be greater than the pleasure of staying the same, equal opposite. But I think most people who are in that slice, there's pain. And so you will change the moment it is more painful to stay the same. A hard problem doesn't necessarily guarantee that it is a valuable problem. Like if you run a marathon very hard, doesn't necessarily make you more money. So like there's lots of hard things that are out there that will not turn into monetization. The second thing is I think it depends on the size of your goals. And so if you want to be a millionaire, you do not need to solve a hard problem. You just need to do a little bit better than other businesses that are wildly underserving their customers, which I promise you, there are plenty. You can just have a pool cleaning business that just cleans better than the other guy and like shows up on time, and all you got to do is knock on doors and ask if they want to switch because their current company probably doesn't pay attention to them. I'd say the number one biggest business influencer, I think, on the planet is Elon Musk. And he happens to own the biggest business on the planet, be the richest man. Jeff Bezos, huge business influencer because he has Amazon. Warren Buffett, probably the number one investing influencer. Like people fly around the world, and when he talks, everyone listens. And so even if a teacher in Des Moines, Iowa, word for word quotes Warren Buffett, and let's do one better, let's say makes even better advice than Warren Buffett does, it's still not going to get the same views because they just forgot to build Berkshire Hathaway and have 100 years of track record. And so what I'm saying there is that when reality is the mode, it means that your brand is the mode. It means your reputation is the mode, which can only happen in reality. Now, that said, I do think it's going to affect different types of content differently. If you're in the world of making fictional whatever stuff, then yeah, I think AI is going to hit you much harder. But even then, there's still going to be the standard holder. Somebody has to determine that this slop is too sloppy and that you still have to work really hard to make the AI make exactly what you want and have it at the caliber that you want it to be at. I'm focused on only doing things that only I can do. Most people can't get hundreds of business owners to fly out in person every month that are all $1 million plus business owners to seek advice on real business problems at 3 million, 5 million, 10 million a year, 500K a year. Most people don't have that. And so I can demonstrate expertise in a live and interactive fashion in a way that other people can't do. I think that live is something that, AI maybe in the future will have some AI avatars that can go live, but at least in the short to medium term, I think live is good. I think IRL, as in like it's actually real people talking, which is, we talked about the Scale or Fail show that we just launched. It's real entrepreneurs and there's stakes involved. I think that is something that is not going to be replaced. But if we think about content on this continuum, all right, let's make this continuum risk. When I say risk, it's the risk that a consumer has in consuming the content and executing on it. And so if we differentiate entertainment and education, is entertainment, the point of the content is to be consumed. It's the only objective of entertainment. The point of education is to change behavior, right? So that's our split. Now, entertainers will get hit harder than educators will. The entertainers that have stakes involved will be able to maintain that moat by still focusing on IRL, real stakes, real stories. Now, in the education world of risk, so we've got beauty on this side. If I have an AI influencer who does a makeup tutorial, I don't think the risk is super high that if the tutorial's good, that a girl's like gonna not use the tip that they made in the thing. I think that's pretty likely. If you go maybe a little bit riskier, let's say I have some personal finance stuff. Well, what's the credit? So the credibility in beauty is beauty. The credibility in personal finance is, do you have personal finances? Right? So who's the number one influencer in personal finance? My opinion, I think it's Dave Ramsey. He also happens to be, I don't think he calls himself this, but I think he's a billionaire. And he's got a massive, I think he's public, $300 million a year of revenue that he's done. And I think there's some other newer age people. I think Vivian too she's a personal finance person. I think Erica Kohlberg touches in this. She's the legal gal. Anyways, all this to say, all of them have more credibility. Like if you just start giving out tips on how to save money, there's no credibility. Reality. There's no reality. You have nothing to back it up. Now, we keep moving further, let's say business, where if you make a wrong call, you could lose your business. Here you lose some money. Here you lose a bad day of makeup. So the risk goes up. The riskier, or the higher the consequences of being wrong, the more people are going to, I think, double down on credibility of source.